grade. This week we're going to be starting with our grade level specific project, and this is going to be cumulative over the next couple weeks. So we'll break it down into pieces like we would if we were together physically in class. But we're going to start off with making some three-dimensional shapes out of two-dimensional material. So depending on what you have, this is going to have a lot of options and a lot of room for playing around. But I'll show you some basic ways of using net and scoring to make what we're going to call a maquette of a module. Now, a module is one piece of a bigger thing that's repeated. So we want to think of it in terms of like a brick wall as a modular construction. The brick is repeated to create the wall. So we're going to be creating one module that we really enjoy making, and that's going to be a maquette. It's going to be a little model of it. And then in later weeks, we're going to make a lot of these. But first, in this week, our objective is to play around with coming up with a three-dimensional module. We just need one this week, but you can play around to see which ones you kind of enjoy a little bit more making than other ones, because you'll be making a lot of them. And a maquette is just a little model. So we're looking to make a maquette of a module, not the whole sculpture, but just one little example piece. Let's get started. So we're really focusing in this whole project on the element of design of form. And you'll remember that the difference between a shape and a form is dimension. So this is where we're going to figure out how to get some dimension out of some flat stuff. Okay, so I've gathered up some stuff that we might need for this. First we need our material that we're going to turn into a three-dimensional object. I have some cardboard, shipping cardboard. I have some regular corrugated cardboard. I have a little bit of chipboard, but we can also use boxes from food that technically, if we're looking at net, this already is a net construction. Also, a ruler is going to be really helpful. You should have a pair of scissors that we can use to do some scoring. Some kind of adhesive, glue, tape, but it's not necessary because we can do some sort of carpenter tricks with things. Really helpful to have, but not absolutely necessary. I have a compass and a colored pencil or a pencil, and that's just about it. So I have a surface to work on. Pardon the background noise. We have a critique going on downstairs and some remote learning, preschool style going on over there. Okay, so if you look at this document of nets, you might remember from math class in 6th grade how you can, and in 7th grade too, how you can create these patterns that when we fold or score, we can turn the two-dimensional objects into three-dimensional objects. These are some simple ones, but you're not limited to these. You can really just play around. This is where having the thinner cardboard of cardboard boxes that food came in is going to be beneficial for you. I'm going to take this box apart. These folds on the box we're going to refer to as scores. It's sort of cut halfway without going all the way through. So I'm going to cut this down into some smaller pieces that I can work with. Now I want you to know you can also make an origami shape. If you are talented at doing origami. I myself get lost after hamburger fold, hot dog fold. but with enough practice I can work my way through a demo. If you would rather do a really cool origami shape, you could do that as well. There's no shortage of videos for how to do that. Now this is where our white colored pencil is a helpful tool, and our ruler. To make a score mark, say we want to have a fold right here. We can use our scissor blade very carefully up against our ruler. And then we have a score mark. Now, if you happen to have a utility knife or a box cutter in your house or an X-Acto knife, you can use them if it's alright with your parents and under their supervision. We'll go through the whole safety demo like we would in school. So in 8th grade, we spent a lot of 7th grade with those demos and safety. But as a refresher, you always want to be making sure that you're imagining that there's like a laser across this line all the way through, so that there's nobody and nothing in the way. You always want to have your hand on the other side of where you're using your cut. And you don't do it up like this, you keep it down like this. But really, for our purposes, the blade of the scissor, which is also very sharp, is going to work just as well with these food packaging cardboards and chipboards. So we're going to play around to just kind of come up with ways of making a really cool three-dimensional shape. We're not limited to the ones that are on the design that I showed you. For instance, I could just play around and cut. Made a weird shape like this. Now to keep this to be stable, I'm going to make a right angle. Okay, so if I put a little right angle in there, I can have this be stable. Now, I could use tape to hold this together. They do want it to be as sturdy as possible, so if you have any glue around, this is a good time to be able to use it. I'm just doing a little seam of glue. Less is more. Remember, with glue, once it dries, you're talking about surface area. So more glue does not mean stickier. It just means that there's more stuff in between our surfaces that we want to glue, so it won't be as stable. Having a little squeegee is going to be helpful here. And we'll wait for that to dry. Now, if you don't have any adhesives, you can work like a carpenter would by having some grooves. Let me show you that. So what we could do here, before this was three-dimensional, we could cut a little space and just stick that right in. If you're doing really exact measurements of things, remember to measure twice and cut once. But what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of playing around. I might look at this and be like, oh, you know what? If I made another one and added it, it would become a spaceship. Or if I add something on the other side. Or why couldn't we actually just make something go through here like this? Just little pieces. Playing around with the cardboard and making three-dimensional things. That is our objective right now. is to take 2D things and make a really cool 3D shape. We can stick things through grooves. We can make little shapes like this. I mean, I don't even know what this thing is. We are just having some fun making non-objective three-dimensional shapes. I'm going to try to not make it too complicated. We just want a really solid, interesting shape. If you have a compass, you can use it to make a circle and then score along like we did in our color wheels last year, and then you can cut pieces out and glue them on to be a little funnel piece. Now I'll show you how to do that. Okay, this was a piece of cardboard from a frozen pizza, which if you're lucky, you've been eating a lot of, right? Now to find out the radius, we're going to need to find what this is from one side to another. This is about 9.5. So 9.5, we're going to set our compass. 4.5, 4 3/4. So that should be about our center. And that is going to help us to divide this up evenly. So I have the radius, and then I jump from point to point. Should be giving you some deja vu from color wheels right here. Alright, and then we can take this measurement in half if we want to go even further. Alright, so now we can go through and make our score lines. Again, being very, very careful with our scissors. Putting my hand above. Remember, whatever side you score on is the opposite way that it will bend. I'm cutting out a piece here, so this will be our little tab part. Alright. If you need to go back and voila. And we're not limited here. We can do all sorts of stuff. It doesn't have to just be a circle like that. Okay, here's some other examples of little modules that we can make. I've taken a piece of cardboard here and just put glue along the side. And that makes it three-dimensional just by gluing these two pieces together to make a curve. Here's some other examples of things that I've made. I took two circles, cut one in half, and glued one on each side. Scoring in just kind of funny directions, and then placing little right triangles glued in. Taking two pieces and just curving them along to glue. Another way of making a sphere or a round shape. Something a little bit more geometric. I made it just like you would with stairs, scoring on opposite sides and then attaching to a piece that just had sort of a crenellated looking bottom. Here's another one that I did with using the compass and just having a really cool kind of edge coming down. And that could be glued in. Curves. And here's another one. This is actually just the negative space from something that was cut out for another project. So I just have these scraps like this. So if you're able to make a cut through, you could also conceivably do this with scissors. See, this kind of went through just a little bit, so we can go on the other side and do this. I'm trying to do these demos without box cutters, but these are still very sharp, so you've got to be mindful. Now this sort of has some dimension to it, and to stabilize, here's another cheat for this. Okay, 8th grade, there you have it. You're making one three-dimensional shape out of two-dimensional materials. You are not limited to cardboard, chipboard. If you have fabric around that you want to sew with and make a little like pillow structure or something like that, that's fine. Our objective here is to make a really cool three-dimensional form out of two-dimensional surfaces. If it looks like something, you want to turn it into something, hold that thought till next week. But I want to see in our brunch critiques or a picture that you put into the Google Classroom, I'd like to see, or email, that's fine, you can get an image to me that way too. I'd like to see the form that you've created. So we have all these different kinds of things that we can make. Don't do just a cube. If you make some sort of a cube or square structure, turn it into something by like cutting out negative space in it. Make it a little bit more interesting than just a basic cube or rectangular prism. You folks are pretty creative, so I think that you can go a little further. If you took a few of them and put them together into one form, that would be okay too. But if you're not sure, contact me and we can have some feedback over it. But that's what we're looking to do. And if you don't have access to any of these materials, make something out of origami. There's some of the simple net designs are here, but you don't have to have it to be a traditional geometric shape. In fact, it's a little bit more interesting when you do some scoring and turn it into something else. So have fun doing this, and be careful, especially when you're scoring and doing all of the cutting parts of it. Be really, really careful, and I will be seeing you soon.